Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Pregame Cheat Sheet. I'm Darren Smith along with Mr. Steve Walls, and we are live from SoFi Stadium where the Chiefs cap off Sunday football with the Sunday Night Football matchup, Week 10 against the division rival, the Los Angeles Chargers. Steve, it is so fine to be in SoFi. How you doing?
I see what you did there.
I had to do a little something. Man.
It's hadn't been back here since when? Last year?
February, Super Bowl.
Last game of the season last year. But yeah, it's a great day for some football, man. Love the stadium. It's a primetime game, right? Yeah. And it's a game where we didn't think that it would be a primetime game. Like, we had to change our flights midweek.
Literally.
and it's gonna be a great day for some football.
Of course, the Chiefs they have won the last two matchups against the Los Angeles Chargers, including a 34-28 overtime thriller last year on a Thursday night football that took place here. So look, the Chiefs are not a stranger to playing at SoFi. They're undefeated so far. I believe they're 2-0 so far here at SoFi Stadium against the Chargers. Steve.
Yeah, man. It's just like I said. This is a stadium where it's LA, right? Hollywood. This is where your stars are supposed to align. This is where your stars, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Chris Jones and company, those guys, they're supposed to come and have good games here. And if they don't, I would say something's wrong, right? So I think we're going to see a battle-tested team that is going to, on paper, like we say this every week, on paper, this team is supposed to beat the Chargers, right? You're supposed to beat up on average to bad to average teams, and I think the Chargers are just an average team.
Well, right now, the Chiefs currently lead the all-time series 66-57-1. Coming into tonight's matchup, Kansas City is the number one seed if the playoffs were to start today. They sit at 7-2. Los Angeles sits at 5-4. Steve, when you look at this matchup, of course, all eyes are drawn on the quarterback matchup. You got Patrick Mahomes, of course, who is in the lead, so to speak, in the MVP running so far, leads the league in passing yards and touchdowns. He's fourth in QBR rating. And the Chiefs, of course, lead the NFL in points per game at 30 points per game, leading the entire league. So what are you looking for in this matchup? Obviously, there's a reason why NBC wanted to have this game flexed, of course, and of course, going to be in Patrick Mahomes. And next week, of course, the Chiefs host the defending Super Bowl champion in the Los Angeles Rams. But what do you see in this matchup that's drawn NBC to have this game as a night game featuring Justin Herbert taking on Patrick Mahomes?
They know how the last game ended, right? Like in the game before that.
Yeah.
The last game actually where it was Chiefs walk-off win against the Chargers, Travis Kelce with the touchdown, walk-off touchdown. So it's one of those games where Justin Herbert is still looked at as the little brother. There's a lot of quarterbacks like that. It was Josh Allen for a little bit. Now they've tried to push Josh Allen ahead on that pedestal, so to speak. Joe Burrow, those QBs. And this is one of those games where, like I said, it's Hollywood. Patrick Mahomes is the draw. The Chargers, if we were to look at, rewind the tape, back from last week, before the Chargers lost, I would have said, okay, yeah, I can see them, flexing the game out. Well, they took an L last week, and now it's just like, what are we doing here? Justin Herbert's not been playing as well, but they will have some of their keys back as far as like Keenan Allen.
Yeah, Keenan Allen and Mike Williams return for the game. Last week, the Chargers they're coming into this game off a 22-16 loss to the San Francisco 49ers. Kansas City defeated Jacksonville last week at Arrowhead 27-17. So Andy Reid is 16-6 against the Chargers. And again, Patrick Mahomes leading the league in the touchdown in the passing, but also Travis Kelce. Kelce is the leading receiver for the Chiefs and also leads the team in with 8 touchdown receptions. So there's a lot of expected fireworks that's expected in tonight's game, featuring the Chiefs, featuring the Chargers. Again, as you mentioned, Justin Herbert gets a couple of his weapons back in Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. Of course, he already has Austin Eckler. So look, offensively, they can go up and down with Kansas City. Obviously, if we remember in week 2 on the Thursday night game, Kansas City actually had to come back from behind to beat the Chargers and gave up a late touchdown to make the game closer than the final score appeared at 27-24. So knowing that, and this was also the game in week number 2 where they got after Patrick. Joey Bosa, along with Khalil Mack, sacked Patrick Mahomes. So what are you expecting in the second matchup tonight with this defensive line that they have going up against Kansas City's offensive line?
Look, I said in the first matchup earlier this season, the Chargers had the better team. And I don't quite know if it was because of lack of chemistry. We talk about all the time that the new addition of Juju Smith-Schuster, MVS, Isaiah Pacheco just getting in there, Clyde Edwards-Helaire not fulfilling his I would say what he's worth, right? So I think they caught the Chiefs on a bad day. They just weren't prepared. Somehow, some way, they were able to pull out the victory. But that being said, I feel like this defense is one of the better defenses in the NFL when they're all playing and healthy. But I feel like if we're looking at, like I said, on paper, this Chiefs team should blow this Chargers team out the water. The offensive, granted, the Chiefs offensive line hasn't played as well as we had wanted them to play, or as well as the Chiefs had wanted them to play earlier this season. But I feel like if it's mano a mano, this defensive line is the real deal.
For those of y'all who haven't been to SoFi Stadium before, and I know it's a lot of y'all that might be out there like that, let me tell you something. This is a beautiful stadium, and it is probably going to be more Chiefs fans than Chargers fans, but there are a lot of Chargers fans here. But there are more Chiefs fans that we're currently seeing walk in front of us than there are Chargers fans. Now, let me say this. As Steve mentioned before, both Juju Smith-Schuster's out along with McCole Hardman. But for the Chiefs, of course, we expect Kadarius Toney to have a bigger imprint in tonight's game, along with Marquez Valdez-Scantling. But also, Kansas City did bring up Marcus Kemp along with Cornell Powell from the practice squad and got them active for tonight's game.
And I want to ask you, is that a big deal? No Juju, no McCole?
I would say more McCole than Juju, but Juju has been that receiver lately that Patrick has kind of relied on outside of Kelsey. Mm-hmm. So I do think he will be missed. But as Patrick has talked about all season, he's pressed the ball around enough to where you don't really know who's going to step up. So I do expect MVS to at least have a more impact in tonight's game against the Chargers. And I like to see Sky Moore step up. I mean, there's a lot of expectations from Chiefs fans for Sky Moore and Justin Watson was the receiver who put them ahead in the week 2 matchup against them. So look, I expect, maybe because we've covered the Chiefs for so long that we've bought into the next man up mentality that's how they said that they coach their backups to be starters. So if that is the case, if that is to be true in tonight's game, then that's what we expect. We expect those backups to play like starters, like they should be.
And that's interesting too. One thing to note, and want all of the fans to know this, I'm sure you guys have heard. Last week was the first touchdown of the season for MVS, Marquez Valdez-Scantling. So I mean, if that's a positive note to where they're able to come in here and make Valdez or MVS the I guess premier receiver or number one receiver, would he be the number one receiver this week?
Well, and that's what we actually thought going into the season. We thought he was going to be the number one and Juju number 2, but he hasn't really. Well, I don't want to say he hasn't played that way, but it's just that I guess the opportunity, because again, I think it might have been the Tennessee Titans. He only had one catch, and he only had one target in the game. And Patrick threw the ball, I think 68 times. So there's a lot of back and forth, but a lot of it is going to be predicated on the play calling, and then what the Chargers put up against Patrick, and what type of pressure he's under. If he's under pressure where he has to get the ball out quickly, perhaps, but the biggest thing that Marquez has to do is, with his speed, he has to be able to separate from the defender. That's one of the things that we haven't seen from him a lot. Now, granted, some of it has been Patrick underthrowing him or maybe overthrowing him sometimes, but if he can have a little bit of separation going up against the defender, obviously we were watching practice, just throwing darts or whatever, and so, that could be a possibility of Marquez being able to be that premier receiver.
And one of the questions on the chat is Lamar Wallace asks, what's the deal with Ronald Jones? Won't use him? Won't the Chiefs use him at all this year? I don't think they have to.
Well, here's the thing. I was at practice. I was at the presser. I think you weren't there for this one on Wednesday, because I asked Andy Reid about that, because there were reports that they were looking at Eno Benjamin, trying to bring him in, and to that point, I asked him. I said, "Well, Andy said he didn't know anything about it, but there were reports out there saying that works." Yeah, but the thing is, even if you were to look at that, well, my question would be, well, what's that say about Ronald Jones? Because if you're looking at bringing in another running back and you're not using Ronald Jones as it is, what's that say? Now, he's saying, that Andy said that they can only have so many running backs on the active roster. Now, obviously, if you got Clyde, if you got Isaiah, if you got Derek all playing well, then it just becomes a number game. So unless someone gets hurt or something that, where they can't play the next game, then I think that's the only time that we'll see Ronald in a game.
You mentioned the defense being able to, play Patrick a little differently. So the thing about Isaiah Pacheco being a starter now is teams are starting to recognize that he's a legit threat.
Yeah.
I mean, he goes for, 80 yards last week? Yeah. I mean, didn't have a touchdown, but I feel like he played well, and he's starting, I think, to get into a good rhythm. You look back to 49ers game. You look back at the small, touches that he got early on in the season, and you could see it coming along. And I feel like now he's gotten through those rough patches with the top two defenses in the league, starting with the 49ers. So I feel like he's gonna be okay going forward for the rest of the season.
I know that we talked about the receivers, but I also think that in tonight's game, look for a big contribution with the tight ends. Noah Gray and Jody Fortson. I was talking to Mr. Ollie Gates just a few days before we flew out here, and he talked about the Chiefs utilizing. He said, man, they need to utilize that big tight end, and obviously they do run some 13 personnel sets with the 3 tight ends. But look, Jody Fortson being 6'6" and look, he already knows the wide receiver plays because he shot at the wide receiver before they moved him in the tight end. I like to see them try to utilize that, and plus, if you use the 13 personnel, that does allow you the chance to run the football some too, to take a little bit of pressure off of Patrick.
And I think Andy gives that in spurts. He doesn't go out and try to do it every week. We see Noah Gray coming on and playing well, and he's really taking advantage of. I think when you look at how all the tight ends work, right? You have a 6'6" guy in Jody Fortson. You have Travis Kelce at 6'5", and then you have Noah Gray who's right there. And I think when Jody Fortson went down I believe he was banged up a little bit, Noah Gray came in and he was able to fill that void, and he's been great the last couple of weeks. So I think it's a good problem to have, right? Where you look at you're getting three tight ends that are getting success within the system. So, I feel like it's a good problem to have.
Offensively, again, this is going to be a game that's going to see what Patrick Mahomes and we'll get to see a lot of what he's able to do and what he specializes in. Obviously throwing the deep ball, trying to make sure that he spreads the ball around, keeping the defense honest. Look, we also get a chance to see, as you mentioned before, Isaiah Pacheco. And look, there's been some concern. There's been some talk. I know we haven't had a chance to talk to Clyde in the last few weeks. But obviously, his, I don't want to say his confidence, but the fact that he's not starting to get the amount of reps. Because I think last week, he only had like three. I think he was only in for one series, and Andy kind of talked about that as well. But said, it was just how the game went.
And I'm glad you brought that up because I asked Eric Bieniemy that on Thursday when the coordinator spoke. I said, EB, Isaiah Pacheco had majority of the reps first time, as a rookie, as a starter these last couple of weeks. Is it safe to say that the running back committee is no more? He's like, well, no, it's not safe to say that. I get it. Like, you want to be able to keep these defenses on their heels, but
but you also want to
we see the numbers, like the numbers, men line, women line, numbers don't, right? So with that being said, we'll see this week if they make a point to put Clyde in. We'll see if they make a point to kind of can stay with the running game, because we know Andy Reid, it's a pass first offense, pass heavy offense. So we'll see if they can be consistent.
Andy Reid is a pass-first coach.
Right, exactly.
Running game just happens to be an afterthought. But look, speaking of offense, though, obviously when we look back at what the Chargers have, you've got again, we mentioned that they're getting back Keenan Allen, they're getting back Mike Williams, but Austin Eckler has been a thorn in the Chiefs' side. He has scored a touchdown in 3 of the last 4 games that he's played against Kansas City. So that also, look, and he's a threat in both the passing and the running game, because I believe one game this season he's already had 3 touchdowns in a single game. So if Kansas City's not careful, making sure, and I don't know, this is going to be something more so on Nick Bolton or Willie Gay, that they're going to have to spy and focus just keenly on Austin Eckler tonight.
Austin Eckler isn't Derrick Henry.
He's
right?
not Derrick Henry, but
I know there's a but. He's not Derrick Henry. However, I do feel like you and I say this about the chief defensive backs, right? I say this: you faced a Mike Williams, you faced Mike Evans, you faced the Diggs, you faced the Devontae Adams. So there's nothing new that a wide receiver is going to be able to do that's going to be able to hurt you, right? Like you've seen it all, so you can come in with more confidence. Now the linebackers, you mentioned Willie Gay, you mentioned Nick Bolton. Yeah. There's nothing that Austin Eckler is going to be able to do that is a killer unless you make a mistake. You have that mental error. He's not Derrick Henry. He's not some of the other running backs that they faced already this season. So with that being said, I don't feel like he's going to be able to kill them today.
We're live from SoFi Stadium. The pregame chief seat, Darren Smith, along with Steve Walls. And look, kickoff is just over just a little over an hour away. Kansas City Chiefs, Los Angeles Chargers, Sunday Night Football on NBC. Of course, you can also tune in on the radio, national radio. It's just, if you can't watch this game, you got no one to blame but yourself. And we do want to make sure that before we do anything else, we wish everyone a safe and happy holiday this upcoming week. We want to wish everybody happy Thanksgiving. Well, of course, yeah.
What's your go-to Thanksgiving food, real quick?
Well, it used to be turkey growing up, but I switched more to ham. So, but look, I'm not cooking, so it's just
right, whatever.
Well, hey, but really, as long as you got macaroni and cheese, mashed potatoes, I'm good. I'm there, and some dinner rolls.
I'm a sides guy, so as long as you got the macaroni and cheese, you got the yams with the marshmallows in it,
collard greens.
Just give me the sides.
Yeah, so I'm good. And a lot of times people like to switch it up and have prime rib and a whole bunch of seafood. So I'm like, that's.
I mean, you can go grab some Gates baked beans as well.
5 locations all over the metro area. Well, look, be that as it may, look, we want to wish everyone happy Thanksgiving. Also, just remind you, we're back in Kansas City next week for the late afternoon game, 2:00 p.m. Central, as the Chiefs host the Los Angeles Rams, the defending Super Bowl champions at Arrowhead Stadium. So Steve and I will be back in town. And, of course, you can join us at the Soiree Steak and Oyster House tomorrow night for the Red Hour, featuring myself, Steve Walls, DJ Q, and Sean Tyler as well as we recap tonight's game. And so, Steve, I don't know if we're going to take a quick timeout.
We can take a timeout.
Take a quick timeout. We'll come back. We'll look at the defensive side of football for both teams as we head to Sunday Night Football.
Football fans, you can't spell gate without Gates, and great tailgates start with Gates sauces and seasonings. Named synonymous with mouth-watering tailgates. When you make your list of tailgate essentials, add Gates sauces and seasonings to that list. Spice up your tailgate experience with that unmistakable great taste. Available in 4 tantalizing flavors. Classic, sweet and mild, mild and hot. Find it at your local grocer, and if you don't see it, ask for it. Visit GatesBarbecue.com to purchase any of the great sauces and seasonings. Great tailgates start with Gates.
All right, we're back here live at SoFi Stadium. Pregame chief sheet Darren Smith along with Steve Walls. Follow Steve Walls on social media at Steve Walls KC. You can follow me at Darren Smith WHB on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. I don't know, whatever else that's out there. But Steve, looking at the defense side of football, who's that one player, in your opinion, do you think Kansas City needs to watch out for defensively when they're on offense?
I would say it's just the whole defensive line, man. I would say because look, we talked about Clyde not being able to get his just due, right? Like he hasn't been able to get the yards that as a first round pick. It's your 4th year, right? You're supposed to be in full swing now. So I think it's going to be that defensive line. The offensive line has to figure it out. They were good last year. They've got to keep. What does Coach Eric Bieniemy say? Keep chopping wood, right? Got to keep chopping wood. So if they're able to keep the defensive line at bay, I think that's going to be key.
I think the one player that the Chiefs are that they're going to be keeping an eye on is the safety Derwin James. He's always he's always someone that you hear his name called often against Kansas City. I know at least for the past 5 games he's had more than 5 tackles. So I expect he's going to have his name called a lot in the press box and on the national broadcast night. So if I'm Kansas City, I may be trying to draw plays away from him, because he is someone that can become a game changer if need be in tonight's game.
I agree, but Patrick Mahomes isn't going to care about that. He's going to go at him.
He got to care, but
he's going to go at him. But again, it's going to be the wide receivers to be able to get open, make good routes. Don't let Derwin James be able to get in there and try to wreak havoc.
But here's the thing. I think obviously everything will be predicated on the pressure, as you mentioned before, on the defensive line. Now, when you see someone like Khalil Mack, I'm not sure if Joey Bosa is back for tonight's game. He may or may not be. But if they can get that same type of pressure that they did, because remember, in the first game, in the first quarter, they got after Patrick. I think they sacked him 2 or 3 times. I know Khalil had a sack. Yeah, so I know they got him at least twice. And then it was after that first quarter they made the adjustments, and you never really heard their names again. So hopefully they don't wait, 15 minutes before they make adjustments in the game. And look, based off of what they did the last time they played these teams, I would imagine they would try to repeat it until and unless something else comes about where they do something different to try to get after Patrick. So if the offensive line can hold up and give Patrick time, then yes, I don't care if it's Darren James or anybody else, Patrick is going to attack him because he's going to have the time and he's going to make the right read to be able to do it. However, if they can get pressure on Patrick and force him to make a throw that he's uncomfortable with or making, that opens up the door for the Chargers.
And you mentioned Khalil Mack. Khalil Mack he's been wreaking havoc this past few weeks. He had 7 sacks of the season and 2 tackles for loss last week. Yeah. He's the only player with 6 sacks in each of the past 8 seasons. He had 7.5 sacks and 10 tackles for loss in 10 career games versus KC. And it's for his 4th in a row in prime time with a sack.
That's what I'm saying. So
yeah.
I mean, his name will possibly be called tonight.
I agree. But I mean, if there's no Joey Bosa tonight, I think that makes it a little bit easier.
Oh yeah. No, it makes a big difference for them. Obviously, one name that I had somebody actually earlier this week when I was interviewing Justin Reed. It was like Trent McDuffie's name isn't being called a lot, and I'm like, you don't seem to understand. If his name ain't being called, that's a good thing. Yeah. Because look, there's a couple of things. One, he's just doing a good job on his end, and 2, other teams respect his game enough that even coming off an injury, they're not trying to attack him as much because he's able to. I mean, he's holding up his end.
And I'm glad you brought up Trent McDuffie, right? Because I was able to ask a couple coaches, the offensive coordinator, especially Steve Spagnuolo, the chief defensive coordinator, earlier this week about Trent being able to miss, 4 or 5 games, come back right back like he never left, and feel right in. And he said Trent. All of the young guys are smart, but Trent is one of the smartest guys that he's coached as a young player. So he's been able to just fit right in and not miss a beat. Now, he did get beat. He said, Steve Spagnuolo said that Trent did get beat once, but he was right there. Now, sometimes you can be there, not make the play, but you're still running stride for stride. So I think Trent's going to be fine.
Obviously, Kansas City also gets back Frank Clark tonight. He's back from his 2-game suspension.
And Frank's at home. He's from L.A.
Oh, yeah, we know what happened last time he was in L.A. But he's been with the team. I can confirm he's been with the team the entire time they've been in L.A. So
I agree.
So that being said, but here's the dish coming back to what's that do for the defense? Because obviously, look, they've been getting after the quarterback even in his absence the last season. I mean, they've had 5 sacks? I think the last 2 or 3 ball games, in each game. So I think with him being back, I think the pressure continues to get dialed up. And I remember in week 2, Justin Herbert got hurt in that game. I think they hurt his ribs or something. I think they hurt his ribs or something in that ball game, Steve. So
I think when you look at how this defense has been playing, right? When you look at how this defense has been playing, you gotta remember last week.
Yeah.
You had Chris Jones playing well. You had Nick Bolton, Willie Gay. All these guys are playing well with no Frank Clark. Colin Saunders is the guy that we haven't even talked about today, and he's playing phenomenal.
Or Derek Nottie,
Derek Nottie as well. And we had Colin Saunders on our Monday night show at Soiree. Remember, come down to Soiree. We Steak and Oyster House, 18th and Vine. Come and hang out with us for the Red Hour. Myself, Darren Smith, Uncle Sean Tyler, DJ Q. All Chiefs football. You never know who will show up. We had Derek Nottie one week, then Colin Saunders last week. So we're bringing them through. But back to Colin Saunders, he even talked about last week how he's feeling more healthy. He doesn't even have to have his elbow brace on. He said he'll get it taped for the rest of his career. But he's 100% healthy, and he's playing like it.
I do want to ask you, I want to get your thoughts right quick on some of the other rookies that we haven't really talked about as much. That I don't want to say that we've expected or we thought we would see more from them. But George Karlaftis, Leo Chanel, what are your thoughts on and Joshua Williams? You know, what do you and Brian Cook? What have you seen from them on the defensive side of football? You know,
I think the defensive backs have been fine. I really do. I mean, they've had their hiccups. Like I said, they played 4 of the or 5 of the top wide receivers in the league. You know, with the Diggs, the Devontae Adams, all those guys. So I think the defensive backs are fine. Now, George Karlaftis, he's figuring it out, right? Like we can't expect him. I was there was a bet going on in the barbershop earlier on before the season, right? Like preseason. Oh, George Karlaftis, the bet was 6 sacks. Would he have? That was the number. Would he get to 6 sacks? Some people said yes. Some people said no. So that was the line. He's had what, 0.5, half a sack, and we're 9-10 games in. So I don't think he's going to get to the 6 sack mark this season. And we really haven't heard his name called. They talked about his motor earlier this season, right? Now he's going up against that starting right tackle, starting left tackle, and he hasn't been that effective. He's getting a little bit of push, right? But I feel like it's going to take him some time before he's there.
The one thing I would say is that for Leo, along with George, I think because the starters are doing such a good job and getting enough snaps and getting enough pressure, getting enough of the stats, that George and Leo, I'm not saying that their players have been as necessary as the others. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, obviously, you know, you need the rotation that you got with the defensive back. But, you know, even in the absence of Willie Gay for a couple of games, even in the absence of Frank Clark for a couple of games, you know, Kansas City really hasn't missed a beat to where they would have had to rely on their rookies. But look, the good thing is that they are contributing. They are getting into the mix with the starters in key moments.
Yeah, that's what it's about.
Experience, and at the end of the day, that's what's going to pay the most dividend off when it comes, you know, down the line.
Yeah, and I agree, and I don't know what you think about it, but you getting these guys who we talk about getting that experience. You know, how beneficial is that going into, you know, where you expect to be going deep into the playoffs?
I don't know. No, I think it's practical. Look, we've always talked about the way Kansas City does things. You know, where you pay a select group of guys, you know, that you're gonna, you know, pay that big money to, and with that, you know, you sprinkle in some rookies, but you get them that experience. So then, when their contract time is up, they might price themselves out of Kansas City, but they'll at least have to get that big contract somewhere else to where Kansas City's setting them up at. So I think it's a double-edged sword, but it also works both ways for the players. Look, the Chiefs are getting a lot out of them at a young age, at a cheap wage, relative, of course, and they're contributing to the team's success. At the end of the day, I was on someone's show yesterday in Cleveland, my guy Garrett Bush, and one thing we talked about was what separates Kansas City from everybody else. And when you have, you know, rookies and first-year players that buy into, free agents that buy into, you know, what Kansas City's trying to do. Look, it's kind of like when Brady was in New England. You go to New England, you expect nothing less than a Super Bowl appearance, not a Super Bowl win. Now, after 4 straight, you say, look, that's the base, that's the floor of where Kansas City is. For Kansas City expects to get to the Super Bowl, but at worst, you're going, you know, you feel like you should be hosting the AFC Championship game, if not going to the Super Bowl and winning. So everyone is bought into it, and so when you get it from Andy Reid, when you get it from, you know, from Brett Veach, from Clark Hunt, the owner, and it trickles down to Patrick Mahomes, which trickles down to everybody else. When they buy, you know, when Patrick is all in, just like Brady was, everybody else feeds off of it, so everybody else will make the ultimate sacrifice to do what it takes to try, you know, to try to get to the end result.
Yeah, it's a great problem to have, to always be expected to do well.
Yeah.
So I mean, I just think that the success kind of carries over year to year, and you get all these young guys coming in, and they know that the expectation is high, and they're able to kind of just feed right in.
I will also say that not only success, but the agony of defeat has something to do with it as well. Because you got to stop and remember, when the Chiefs went to the AFC Championship game first time around and they faced the Patriots and they lost that game because they were right there at the very end, you know, outside of course, the offside. So they were right there. They felt like they could taste it. that was a motivating factor for them the following season, where they came all the way back to get to the Super Bowl. Look, they were behind in 3 straight games, including the Super Bowl, before winning it. But they had that taste of success. They wanted more of it. They ran it all the way back, got to the Super Bowl. So, you know, extenuating circumstances, they weren't able to win, but they at least got back to the game. So that loss, they wanted to get back there. They got to the AFC Championship game, had an epic collapse in the second half, but that same failure is what's motivating them to get back to the AFC Championship game and to right the wrong to get back to the Super Bowl.
I agree. But then, the young guys weren't here though.
But what I'm saying is that those people that were here, you know, so I mean, they got that hunger, and so you got the new people coming in. They're feeding off of that because they have to buy into it.
Yeah.
Because if the veterans are pushing them, if the veterans are pushing themselves because of what happened last year, you know, the rookies and the free agents, they're going to buy. I mean, they're going to feed right off of them.
Okay. All right.
So I want to ask you before we get out of here, X factor in tonight's game, then who wins the game tonight?
I think the X factor on offense for the Kansas City Chiefs is the one Patrick Mahomes. I really feel like, you know, he has to continue to push this team forward. We saw him against Tennessee will his team to a victory. We saw him, do some things that were kind of uncharacteristic, you know, for a quarterback at that point in a game. And I think, you know, he has to keep his MVP candidacy alive. Yeah. He really does, because if he's able to do that, I feel like the offense will be successful.
You know, to that point, and I'll let you finish to that point. For Kansas City to end up with the number 1 seed at the very end, he has to continue to play, because even though the year that they went back to the Bowl and they lost, Patrick's play fell towards the end of the season. Mm-hmm. Even though they were 14-2, they lost the last game that they didn't need. It was just he was making some ill-advised throws that I believe cost him a chance to get his second MVP. But I think with the way things are playing, Buffalo opened up the door last week with that loss. Kansas City's now in the driver's seat. If you just hold serve, but not just hold serve, but also look, you're expected to win these games now. Yeah. If you do that and just put up regular Patrick Mahomes' number, then that look. Granted, I've talked to Patrick. I know you have as well, and I've talked to people who are around Patrick. He doesn't care about the MVP. If it happens, it happens. He wants Super Bowl.
He cares.
No. I'm saying he cares, but he cares more so about playing in that Super Bowl and winning that. You know, I mean, if it comes along, cool. But because he's already won it, he's fine with that. He wants what everybody wants. What he's not going to be judged by how many MVPs. Peyton Manning has 4 MVPs. Brett Favre has 3 MVPs. Hell, Aaron Rodgers has 4 MVPs. But how many Super Bowl titles do they have? 1, 1, and 2. You know, with Manning. So he wants to be in that. His goal is to be in that conversation with Brady and Montana, and you can only do that if you have multiple MVP, if you have multiple Super Bowls.
I agree. Now, looking at the defensive side of the ball, I feel like the X factor. I think the X factor has to be Justin Reed, and the reason why I say that is because you have a Mike Evans and you have a Keenan Allen who are coming in here and they want to make sure that they will their team to a victory. Keenan Allen has always had success against this Kansas City Chiefs defense. Always. I think Mike Williams has as well. And so I think you've got to have a guy on that back end. We always talked about it, and I don't want to bring up old guys, but we've talked about Tyrann Mathieu year in and year out through the Super Bowl run, Super Bowl era, right, for this Chiefs team, how much he's helped will and pump life into this defense. Of course, we know about Chris Jones. Of course, we know about the Nick Bolton, who wears the green dot and is going to call the plays for the defense. But you got to have a guy on the back end that's able to be that as the Chiefs players are running on the field with their white on white uniforms. And yeah. So I think, like I said, I think it's going to have to be Justin Reed on that back end. It has to be the X factor.
Who wins the game? What's your score for tonight's game? Do the Chiefs come? They're up. They're 5.5-point favorites.
I know everyone thinks it's going to be a close game, but I think the Chiefs blow the doors off this team tonight. I said it was going to be 41-17. I think it's going to be 41-17.
For me, I just think the way things seem to always turn out on Sunday Night Football and division matchups or whatever, I think it's going to be close. That's just how these teams play each other. I mean, it always seems to be a close game. So I don't think it changes. I think the fact that Mike Williams and Keenan Allen coming back will help Justin Herbert. Now, look, I've been on record saying I don't think there's anything elite about Herbert, so we'll see whether or not he proves me wrong. Well, first of all, if they only scored 17 points, they lose 41-17.
I mean,
that's not going to be.
Patrick Mahomes could just be better. It ain't Justin Herbert.
That part is true too. But I do have. I think I got Kansas City winning 31-27.
Okay.
So I think it is. I think it is close. You know, for some reason Kansas City just seems to find a way to make games close when they don't have to be.
Yeah.
And that's, to me, that's the biggest thing that concerns me, because they'll put themselves in a situation where where the game doesn't have to be this close. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what might end up happening. See your Cowboys won 40-3 tonight.
Of course. I told you I had them going to Super Bowl. I mean, I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
You might be surprised, but I'm not.
No, I'm not surprised. But that being said, before we get out of here, Steve, of course, as always, we do want to thank our sponsors, including but not limited to Gates Barbecue, of course, 5 locations around the metro area. Look, you still have time. It is, it's 4:35 here, but 6:35 back, so you have a little more than a half an hour. If you're already headed your way there, if you're not, you're trying to figure out what to eat for dinner tonight. There's 5 locations, Gates Barbecue. Tell them Steve or tell them I sent you, and I can assure you that they will take care of you very, very well. Tell them to give you the shift special or the W special, and they might take 10% off. I ain't saying they're going to do it.
Still got time to go grab some Gates.
Still got time. But, Steve, as always, we do try to dress to the nines and dress to impress. Who styled you, as always, for tonight's game?
Go check out my friends over at Dillard's on Arosa. Remember, you got the holidays are coming up. Buy your significant other something nice. Or if you need something for work, if you need something for play, whether you're going to hang out with your friends, go check them out. You can talk to Heather. Ask for Heather over in the men's section. Remember, they have ladies apparel, kids apparel, and ladies accessories as well. If you want to get your woman friends or your wife that handbag, purse, whatever you call it, some makeup, jewelry, shoes, go check them out. Also, shout out to Leandra Harden, who helped me pick out this paisley print jacket. I try to get the Hollywood style, Hollywood look, today. So thank you to her for helping me be styled for today's game.
And shout out to Leandra, because look, we did eat well at Fixin' Soul Food in honor of you, according to Steve. That was his idea. I'm glad he made that suggestion. That's something that we're probably going to be doing every year before the game. Get some of that itis out the way. Mm-hmm. But as always, look, I want to say thank you to Todd White and Todd's Clothiers and Taylor Suits of, getting me with the double-breasted look for tonight's ball game. And so, look, he's at 2 locations, 20th and Broadway, downtown Kansas City, along with Ward Parkway Mall. Look, got some specials going on. We'll have some Black Friday specials along with Christmas specials. So whether it's Dillard's, whether it's Todd, make sure you go out there and support our sponsors and tell them that we sent you. They'll take good care of you. But a couple of reminders, tomorrow night, 6:30, 7:30, back in Kansas City, Steve Wall and I, along with Sean Tyler and DJ Q. You can join us for the Red Hour at the Soiree Steak and Oyster House. Next Sunday, we'll bring you the pregame cheat sheet at 2 o'clock Central, as the Kansas City Chiefs host the defending Super Bowl champion Los Angeles Rams. So, and then following the game, Steve and I will bring you the postgame show. We'll do it from the field. We'll also bring you the postgame presser, interviews with the players and stuff as well. So thank you so much for your support. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We might even do something at halftime, but in the meantime, pregame cheat sheet, Steve Walls at Steve Walls KC, Darren Smith at Darren Smith WB. We are out of here.